Alright troops, if you're here for urizen, that guy is getting his own video dedicated to him, which will be linked in the card at the top right. This will cover the whole mission up to him, so if you don't care about the mission, see you at urizen. The style route through this mission took me quite a bit to form consistently without taking extra fights. All 3 mandatory fights are based around how you perform on one enemy for the majority of your points, and the rest are just for filling your style gauge. This is the first Nero mission with strict style requirements, and while you can lessen the burden by taking optional fights, it's not necessary provided you strategize correctly. Which is why we're doing this bullshit style meter farming. It's important you don't actually hit these enemies or it'll tank your score. Just got to keep jump cancelling backwards. Use a taunt once you hit B to carry your meter over to the first fight. Sadly, there's a trigger just outside the fight that kills all the enemies spawned in this area, so you can't carry one with you and use it to build style in the fight proper. Our first breaker magazine is split between 2 fights, so I dedicate 4 to each. Getting to SSS as quickly as possible and staying there is your goal, but if it takes a while, don't worry, as long as you get there before the Antinora die. The big focus of this fight is making sure you can carry SSS over to the Fury, which you need if you want to hit 6000, which was the minimum style score I was accepting without restarting, since it can make the next 2 fights kind of dicey if you've got less. Exploder is great for this since you can choose when to detonate it with a simple input, and if you're on SSS at all it'll max out your gauge, making it easy to keep going. Furies are cool, and in a future mission I will definitely be fighting them straight up, but with the big roadblock at the end of the mission I needed a strategy as time efficient as possible. Spawn camp it with high roller so you can grab it easily. You need it stunned before using Buster or else it'll just dodge away, and a launcher is the easiest way to do that. This gives you enough time to charge Ragtime and pop Slow World once it's done. From here I opt to use Buster Arm, but Showdown works too. If you do use Buster Arm, make sure and skip the enemy kill cutscene, because it will also skip the part of the animation where your arm breaks and let you keep it going into the next fight. Tentacles are one of the biggest sources of style in the game for some reason. You can really optimise here if you want and spread damage between them all with weak attacks like Rawhide, but it's not really worth the trouble when just hitting them with a max level caliber, then doing whatever you want to the rest gives you about 500 points of breathing room for the rest of the mission. Position yourself slightly to the right of the first tentacle and wait for the rest to spawn in, and you can clip 2 of them with your caliber and hit B instantly, then just kill the rest. Depending on how well the first fight went, you should come out of this with 6600 to 6800 points or so, unless you screwed up. This fight is about hitting either SS or SSS, then bustering the Proto-Angelo before his Devil Trigger activates. This does about 99% of his health in one hit. If you kill both Baphomets, it'll activate the Angelo's Devil Trigger, so spreading damage between the 2 to build your gauge is the safest play. I really like Rawhide here because it lets you get a guaranteed stun from a little further away than other breakers while also doing area of effect damage. The room's shaped as such that Gerbera lasers should bounce and keep the Baphomet on the other side stunned, and it builds a good chunk of style by itself. Helter Skelter is an easy way to guarantee a knockdown and set up for the Buster, which is occasionally awkward with just Devil Trigger activation for your stun. Having to fight the Proto-Angelo in a straight up battle after Devil Trigger activated was a style death sentence for me most of the time. Maintaining enough aggression to keep your SSS becomes very difficult when you can no longer stagger it easily. It's certainly possible to fight it normally, but it's also very easy to mess up, either by being overly aggressive or being too defensive and losing your style gauge. So simply deleting it from the game with a Buster was not only much easier for a fight I was expecting to have to clear over and over again, it also saved a lot of time, which was just as valuable. It takes a long time to take this guy down without breakers. Once the Proto-Angelo is down, finishing off the Baphomets shouldn't be a problem. If they're ever winding up an attack and you can't interrupt it because of Devil Trigger, Buster will always stun them, so just grab them if they ever look threatening. You'll lose a ton of style points after this fight no matter what you do, but with this Buster strategy you should still walk away with more than enough. I had 6300 this attempt after what I would call a low performing first fight, which is enough to make error after error in the next one and still be fine. The breaker loadout for fight 3 is something that will probably come down to personal preference. You get to restock immediately before and after, so you can just go ham with whatever you're most comfortable with. Although I would highly recommend at least using Gerbera lasers at the top of the fight, since it stuns everything around and builds a bunch of style. This mission follows the same formula as the previous two. Build up SSS, then go for the high value target. In this case, a nobody. I planned my breaker loadout around killing it early before any of the Baphomets. Buster was in the 4th slot so I could pop Slow World and also let off some others to get my style up before going for the finisher. Staggering the nobody can be a bit tricky, but Slow World should give you ample time. It can get really rough to prep it for the Buster once Devil Trigger activates and it gains a ton more stun resistance. But if you do happen to kill too many Baphomets early, it's not going to ruin your run or anything, and the Buster arm will still be enough to kill it in one shot. I toyed around with a lot of different strategies in this fight, such as leaving the nobody for last. But the ultimate conclusion was that other than opening with Gerbera lasers, it doesn't really matter what you do. When you have this amount of freedom to spam breakers, you can maul everything, however you would like. And here's where we cut it. I wanted a full video on urizen and didn't want to turn this into some juggernaut that is way too long. Devil May Cry 5 missions already have a habit of doing that without adding an 11-minute boss fight into the mix. Click the card at the top right if you want to see the rest, and I'll catch you there.